What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the ClubDub podcast presented by SportsMockery.com. Make this graphic go away real quick here. Had a little bit of a freeze up there. What's going on, Dhruv, Erik, Kevin? Back at it again, talking about that Bears rookie class and that first game on Thursday. That was something, wasn't it, fellas? Thursday. I meant Saturday. Great game, but I think that took the cake, right? What a game just for those guys. Holy shit.
I mean, it was incredible how many guys were making positive plays. Jack Sanborn stole the show, and he's an undrafted free agent, whereas the other draft picks all had, these really standout moments. And the most encouraging part, it was a lot of them were coming on the offensive side. Treston Ebner, the running back, had 3 big plays, one of them on special teams. Braxton Jones, left tackle, didn't look out of place playing against starters. So when you see stuff like that, it gives you a lot of hope that Ryan Poles might actually know what he's doing and might be charting the Bears on the right course here.
Yeah, I basically said that on when I rewatched or watched for the first time the game on Sunday night, and I was like, wow, every single person that was brought in as a rookie, except other than Doug Kramer, who struggled a little bit, but you had basically every other draft pick that played. Tyre Carter even got in there and had some good blocks. Jack Sanborn was all over the field. I mean, it was
great, man.
It was an impressive performance. And I mean, the win is nice. Like, yeah, it's preseason, doesn't really matter. But I mean, what does matter is that most of the preseason is played by depth pieces, second stringers, third stringers, and a team like the Chiefs, who you would expect as a Super Bowl contender, hey, they're even their backup should kill the Bears. The Chiefs looked inept in the second half, So it goes to show that the Bears, while they may not have a lot of star power, they may not have a lot of starting capability yet that's really going to compete with the best in the NFL. They have depth that can certainly at least build that back half of the roster. And we're talking about young players, we're talking about guys that Ryan Poles and his own scouting capability were able to identify. That's very promising for the future.
Yeah, I think a lot of people originally were upset that they didn't go. And this has still been a talking about Jaquan's amazing touchdown grab he had in their first preseason game out in Pittsburgh. Great throw, great catch. The toe tap in the corner of the end zone is beautiful. I think a lot of people were upset for the idea that the Bears didn't go receiver in the second round. There's still talent out there. There's still guys they could have got. There's Sky Moore. There was George Pickens. There's the kid from Cincinnati that I know, Dhruv, you really liked. But Jaquan Brisker, man, it only took a quarter into that game for him to immediately pop out as the best player on the field once the starters were pulled from the Chiefs and Mahomes was out of there. He popped off the page that second quarter. Like that second, third series that he played, he was all over the field. Tackles, flying in. He played up at the line of scrimmage on a few plays. I mean, he hit hard. He almost knocked the ball loose on a slant route by one of the Chiefs receivers. I can't remember who caught the ball, but
Sky Moore.
It was Sky Moore. Yeah, he caught the ball, went right over the field. Literally right away, you just see Brisker eyeing him down right before the ball was thrown. He knew where it was going. First NFL game, I know it's preseason, but god damn, man, he looked awesome. I mean, he was everywhere. He popped off the page.
Look, when you expect to see a highly drafted rookie like a first or second round pick maybe have 1 or 2 positive plays over the course of a game, that's fine. But to see a guy have 3 impactful plays like that over a 5-play sequence, you don't see stuff like that usually. He had a big legal hit on a wide receiver. The next play, he has a 2-yard tackle for a loss. And then I believe it was either 1 or 2 plays after that, he almost picks off the quarterback to send it the other way. So that demonstrated the entire part of his game. He's able to recognize and hit legally without, being reckless. He plays well around the line of scrimmage. He can get into the backfield. He reads it. He reads downhill really well. And then he can read the coverage. He understands where the quarterback is probably going to go with the football, and he has the speed to break on the passes. He's a very unique talent in that regard. And I think combined with his instincts on top of that, there's a reason why a lot of people are buzzing high on him right now.
It's honestly amazing how he was available in the second round. Just looking at some of his talents. I mean, you look at safety as a position. It is, especially if you can cover, if you have intelligence, you have range, you have speed. That is, that's a golden ticket in today's NFL to have a long career. And he displayed all of those things. I mean, Agent Mole here is saying he forced the 3 and out by himself, using all those qualities that Erik just mentioned. His ability to diagnose, keeping eyes on the quarterback, being able to react really quickly. I mean, that was just awesome. And it goes back to college. These are not things that he's just learned in the NFL. These are all things that he did in college and is the reason he was so, sought after as a prospect. So very exciting that the Bears got him. Kind of reminds me of rookie season, 2018 Eddie Jackson a little bit in terms of, that instinct diagnosing capability, range, all that. So that part is really good. Hoping he stays healthy because I mean he's got special ability.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, he doesn't need to play the rest of the preseason. I've seen enough.
Put him in bubble wrap.
I've seen enough. We don't need to. That's another thing that we're going to talk about later in the show. 45-minute show today, a little bit quicker. We got some stuff for all of us to do this afternoon, but we wanted to get on and talk about this one. This is the ClubDub podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, we're back for every week for Bears season football. Finally back here in Chicago, and Saturday was, and I put in the intro of this show today on the description. This is going to be a season that could be disappointing for a lot of people because Bears fans always have high expectations. So let's go into this season with expectations, and you can hold high expectations on certain guys who have earned it. Now let's hold high expectations on this rookie class and look for those little wins because Saturday, there's a lot of wins. If you want to really want to enjoy this season, make sure you're looking at the little wins that we can get. And even with a preseason win, I think you can get those with some of these guys that we saw. But we're getting a lot of comments rolling in here too. Brisker looks like Javon Holland 2.0. Holland had a nice year last year as a rookie for Miami. That would be nice. Similar numbers too. I like the number 9 as a defensive number. You don't see that often. It's very college-like. It's kind of old school. I kind of enjoy that.
It's also a lucky number for the Bears over the course of history. A lot of very good Bears players have worn the number 9. Robbie Gould, Jim McMahon, can go down the list.
There you go. Yeah, and Alan Wright here coming in with a comment. Ronnie Lott comes to mind, as long as Bob Sanders. I mean,
interesting you mentioned that. I wrote an article about how Jaquan reminds me of Ronnie Lott. I don't know if you can find it, but you should pull it up. There's a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah, Alan, go give it a look on Sports Mockery's website if you can. We're going to link to a couple of Erik's articles tonight, but speaking of the rookies, I think none less than I know Brisker had a great game and he stole the highlights. He looked like a football player. He straight up just looked like he knew what he was doing, and to see that in his first game is awesome. But another guy who just stole the show was Braxton Jones. Man, that's a lot to be excited for right there. Left tackle got a lot of praise from his line mates. Cody Whitehair said he's going to be a very good player in this league. Guy who's been around for a long time. Those guys, they know what they're looking for, and they're not going to blow smoke. I'm interested to hear what Lucas Patrick would have to say. He didn't boom, 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 boom. I'm interested to see what he has to say. But Braxton Jones, let's hear those takes. Is this guy ceiling Pro Bowl here?
Oh yeah.
You're way too early predictions.
I mean, when I first watched him, I don't know, this might be me being unfair, but the first name that came immediately to my mind when I watched how he looked and how he played was Tyron Smith from Dallas. It's sort of that same type of length, that same type of athleticism. And when you hear the guy talk, that's sort of what really jumps out about him. He's very intelligent. He's well-spoken, and he seems to understand what he's doing, which makes you think, how did this guy go to Southern Utah? How did he not go to a bigger school? Because he's that talented. He comes across that way. And for him to be this far along in terms of his technique, in terms of his anchor, all those things stood out on Saturday against the Chiefs. He had a couple of, rookie moments, which you expect to see against guys like Frank Clark or the first-round pick George Karlaftis. But he more than battled. He held his own, and he had some outstanding blocks in that game, both running and pass blocking. So to see him this far along already as a 5th-round pick, it really boggles the mind to how good he might actually become if he continues his upward ascent as he has so far.
Yeah, what I think is remarkable is exactly that. I mean, this is a guy who just 5th-round pick, 1-10 team, Southern Utah. Like, you don't pay any attention to this. Like, yeah, he's an offensive line prospect that was drafted, and you get into mini camp and he's taking reps at left tackle, and it's just like, yeah, okay, they're trying it out. And then you get to training camp and he's there with the first team playing left tackle and holding his own. You're not really hearing about he looked like a 5th-round rookie that went to 1-10 Southern Utah, right? I mean, you're hearing about he took on Robert Quinn and held his own. He took on Al-Quadin Muhammad and held his own. He took on XYZ and held his own. I mean, this is not a fluke anymore. We're talking about a guy who's demonstrated across training camp against a very elite pass rusher in Robert Quinn, who's certainly given Braxton Jones some trouble because he's an elite player, but for the most part, Jones has held his own. And then he went up against George Karlaftis and other very solid, very strong defensive players on the Chiefs front, and did well. So I mean, this is no longer this joke that it's like, oh, it's a 5th round pick. Look at the Bears getting their left tackles in the later rounds all the time. You know, thinking back to Charles Leno and all that. This is legit. I mean, this guy looks the part. He looks like an NFL left tackle. He has the athleticism. He has the length. He has the demeanor, and he's winning. Like it's insane. So I mean, I'm very excited about it. I don't know if he's going to be necessarily a special left tackle this season, but I mean, just the fact that he can be a 5th round rookie, come in, step in, and play left tackle for a quarterback that this franchise is banking their next 4 or 5 years on. Wow.
Yeah, let's just stay healthy at this point. You're exactly right. And I mean, for 5th round, to talk about the value pick there, the guy, let alone, I mean, the value is already reached if he comes in and starts week 1, which he's going to do. So I don't think anybody's taking that spot from him. I think we saw little Larry Borum today at left tackle, and we saw also Tevin Jenkins moved over to guard, and that's something I want to chat about. But a lot of the chat is talking about Jack Sanborn, Lake Zurich zone. Shout out to the Northwest suburbs. That's where I'm from. A lot of my family went to Lake Zurich High School, so we talked all about Jack Sanborn this week. And I'll be honest, as I went to school in Wisconsin, I went to Marquette, so I'm not a Badgers fan, but I saw a lot of Badger football while I was up there. And I'll be honest, I could not believe. I thought Jack Sanborn was a top 4 round pick. I thought he'd be a 4th, 5th round pick in this year's draft. Couldn't believe he didn't get drafted. This guy forced 3 fumbles, a fumble in his first 3 seasons there, and he had 4 interceptions in 3 seasons there as a linebacker there. And he only played, I know his 2020 season was shortened by injury, only played about 7 games, but this is a guy gets in the backfield, he's tackled for loss, and his instincts pop right off the page. So we know what kind of defense that Eberflus is building. It's going to be all about guys who can jump the ball, jump the route, force turnovers, and hit. I think Sanborn's a lock to make the team after how he played. He'll definitely get a lot of reps here in Seattle, which will be good. But yeah, no question. He's getting all of the love in the chat right now, and he earned it. He played great. That interception, just ripping the ball right away. That was good. The forced fumble, just right place, right time. Or recovered fumble, I should say. Good, just the right place, right time. But that interception was next level, great stuff. And to be honest, if this Roquan stuff continues to progress and he's not ready for week 1, Sanborn's going to be a good depth piece. I don't know if he starts right up the way, but regardless, good depth.
Honestly, I think he showed the capability to start at Sam linebacker in week 1. I mean, he doesn't have elite athleticism. He doesn't have elite speed. But he was everywhere, like on time. He knew exactly where the ball was going. He was diagnosing plays, at the snap. He was making tackles because he knew where to be at the right time. It's the type of athleticism that the Bears need at the Sam linebacker spot. It's the type of instincts and intelligence that will help him overcome his otherwise, athletic shortcomings. So I think he displayed a lot of just football player mentality. And I think actually Alan Wright said it really well in the chat over here. He's a football player. Yeah, he's a football player. He really is. And that's what they need. They need young football players that can come in and compete. And I think he's doing that. If Roquan Smith goes away and maybe Nick Morrow probably maybe slides into that weak side linebacker spot. I don't know who takes over middle at that point, but you're talking about Sanborn's looking the part for sure.
No question. I mean, that's the whole thing about the draft is the draft proclaims itself to be as accurate as possible, but guys slip through the cracks all the time. And often a big reason is teams are afraid of their athletic upside. And Sanborn, as you said, he's not the biggest. Well, he's 6'2", so that's good size for a linebacker, but he's not overly fast. He's not necessarily quick, but he overcomes all of that with his outstanding intelligence and instincts. He knows where the ball's going at all times. He reads well, he reads fast, and he's able to get in position regardless of his lack of speed. There are going to be moments where, that'll be exposed from time to time, but he's the type of guy that can overcome that sort of thing. There's guys scattered across the NFL who are like that. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Nick Kwiatkowski. Kwiatkowski had the same things, talked about him for years, and he ended up being a really good starter once guys went down with injury a few years ago. So he can be that type of player and be a good, solid linebacker in this defense. Because Matt Eberflus is a linebacker guy. They've got a great coaching staff that knows how to coach up linebackers. And you're already seeing, a lot of the stuff sort of come forth with that. Sanborn looked good. The kid they signed from the USFL looked good. So it's really encouraging to see stuff like this, that with so many young guys popping off the screen, it tells you that these coaches are living up to what they promised, which is teaching them how to play the game right. And so that sort of gives you hope for where they're going.
I got a lot of comments in here too. We know it's just preseason, but this is the thing about this upcoming season is you got to look at the little wins for the Bears. This is not going to be a year that they're going to light the world on fire, but little victories like this, pretty nice to see, especially from an undrafted guy. Comment here from John: didn't Orlando Brown go in the 5th round and is a Pro Bowler? The draft is always incorrect. I believe Orlando Brown was a 3rd round pick. Yeah, but either way, I know what you mean, John. We're just spitballing ideas right now. This offensive line still needs a lot of help. When they were in there, the first couple series against the Chiefs ones, Mahomes was great on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive line struggled and the offensive line struggled. It was both. They just were outmatched on both sides of the ball. So I think, especially coming up on week 1, when you're going to face one of the best front sevens you'll face all season in San Francisco, I think that you have to assume eyes are still on who's getting cut. There's guys getting cut today. We're seeing, so there's going to be eyes on that board. It's going to be a plug and play situation, I think, for most of the season. So we'll see. I am interested, though. I would love to get a bird's eye view or talk to somebody who has seen Tevin Jenkins play at right guard now, because I think that could be something. If he just never seemed set up for tackle last year. It always seemed like he was slow of foot. Guys were burning past him. Granted, he had a tough assignment coming in there after back surgery, but it just never seemed like he had the quick feet to work that position. And I'm not going to pretend to be an offensive lineman. I don't know what it takes to be the difference footwork-wise it would be to be a guard or a tackle, but I would assume that tackle seems to be a little bit more of a stationary type position just from a bird's eye view. So maybe Tevin can hold up there. Who knows, right?
I mean, Eberflus, sang his praises at his most recent press conference. You always like to hear stuff like that. And from some people who have been to the past couple of practices, they said he's looked really good. He had some good blocks in pass protection, and he had a really nice run block in the latest practice. So it seems like he's taking to the position really well. It's a question of, can he take to it quickly enough to where he might be able to compete with Michael Schofield for that starting job. This is why I think his extended playing time in the upcoming game on Thursday, which he should get extensive snaps, will probably be the decider on whether he can, make that push, or it might take him a little bit longer before he's ready.
Yeah, and I think tackle has certain, physical demands that guard may not otherwise have. But apparently in this offense, guard is generally more mentally stressed, I believe are the words that Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach, used. So if that's something that the Bears feel that he can thrive in, he has the mental intuition and capacity to be able to adapt well at the guard position in this offense, and that's great. I mean, I think he can convert, to power pretty well as a guard. I think he has relatively decent athleticism that I think he can get out there in space and make blocks and everything. And I think he could play the position. It was just a matter of, we took this guy in the 2nd round, played tackle, seemed like tailor-made for right tackle in the NFL. Maybe the Bears have a better solution there right now, and they feel more comfortable with him at guard. They finally made that switch. Sounds like he's playing okay. I think he was with the first team today after being with the second team yesterday. So, maybe there's some of it, part of it is injury, part of it is just with them wanting to evaluate him. But I think he's starting to work his way back up in the coaching staff's graces. And I think part of that is because he's turned his attitude around. Part of it is because he's talented enough to do that. So good for Tevin Jenkins. I'm very happy about that. Good for him to get his career kind of back on track, and good for the Bears, because if they get him playing at a high level where he's at least an outstanding depth piece, if not a starter, then that's great for the Bears. They've already upgraded this position based on where we thought we'd be about a week ago.
What did you mean? So I heard you thought he was tailor-made for tackle?
That's what the Bears. going at right tackle, I think everyone thought he was a plug and play option at right tackle. Now the Bears' previous coaching staff thought they were going to switch him to left tackle, but I think right tackle was generally the more accepted position for Jenkins, and some people thought guard. And it looks like this coaching staff finally made the decision. You know what? Let's for now let's abandon the tackle experiment and let's go to guard.
Yeah, I mean, it just has to show how good Braxton Jones has been. But
Oh
again,
yeah.
they're still weak at that. They're still weak at the offensive line position. I don't want to blow smoke, guys. It's still one of the worst offensive lines in football. But Braxton Jones has been a highlight. Hopefully, they get Lucas Patrick back healthy. Obviously the broken hand being out is going to hurt chemistry issues. But he's been around for a while and he's worked with some great quarterbacks and he's familiar with the system. So I think that plays to their advantage there. What are we looking for in the second preseason game? Because I feel like preseason football, there's a lot of people that are like, it doesn't mean anything. It's pointless. We don't need it. It's just there for the league to make more money. And then there's also people like, and some of the players I'm sure feel this way, guys still working to earn spots on the 53-man roster are appreciative of the opportunity. And also, it gives more of a you can't just play against your own guys. You have to get up to game speed, especially for some of these rookies. And the Bears rookies certainly looked up to it, as we talked about earlier in the show. But where do we stand on preseason football, for one? And then the other question is, what are we looking for in the second game against Seattle? Because we don't even is Geno Smith their starting quarterback? I mean, come on, we don't even know
Looks
yet.
like it's going to be Drew Lock, but
Drew Lock, yeah.
But the thing you want to look for with starters is health at this point. You want them to stay healthy. They're going to have one series, 6 to 10 plays. That's what Eberflus said. So hopefully they can put together a scoring drive because they weren't able to in the last game. Get in, get some good execution done, get some more experience, and then get out of there. And then it becomes an evaluation time. There's going to be some more of their rookies who are going to be able to play in this game compared to the last one. Kyler Gordon, I believe, is back at practice. Velus Jones is back at practice. So it'll be a great chance to evaluate them. Tevin Jenkins, we already talked about. And then just continuing these roster battles that they're trying to sift through. Wide receiver still feels like it's wide open. Tajay Sharp has made some nice plays. Daz Newsome sort of recovered from his muffed punt, during the first game. So there's still a lot to sort through. They had some injuries on the defensive side, so there's going to be sort of some jumbling on that side, on the depth side as well. So, a lot of evaluation going on for a roster that's still kind of, malleable and not really set in stone yet.
Alan Wright says, I want the offense to move the ball and score. I think that's every fan, right? There just didn't seem to be a lot of, and granted, I think that drive where Fields got hit in the head on his awkward slide over the line, that would, I think in a regular season game, that's 15 yards and they're moving the chains. And they're going to get at least 3 out of that, unless the ball gets turned over. But I agree. There just seemed to be a little bit of stagnant, moves at certain times in that offense. And I think a lot of that has to do with still, they didn't have all their weapons out there. No Komet. I'm sure he'll be a nice third down option this year. No Velus. So Fields was working with, backup guys. I think that all that kind of plays into it.
I thought Fields operated through the passing game relatively well. A couple of his passes were dropped. He had that scrambling play. He abandoned the pocket a little early. Getsy mentioned that, so he does have to work on that. But I think they need to run the ball better. They didn't run it that well. When the first team offense was on the field, not having Montgomery maybe didn't help much, although Khalil Herbert's a good running back. So they just didn't block that well. So that's something I think maybe Tevin Jenkins will be able to help with because of his power. So I'd really like to see them run the ball better because that's what this offense, this outside zone is sort of built around, running the ball well. So I think that's what the coaches want to see too. And that'll really help Justin Fields with play action, bootlegs, all the stuff that they really want to unleash with him and his athleticism. So I think that's something they're going to be looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I think preseason football is valuable. I mean, obviously it doesn't have the same type of, care merit for many of us. And obviously we just want to make sure that our favorite players are getting by healthy. I mean, that's the main thing that we care about, but there's certainly valuable experiences for some of the young guys to get. I mean, keep in mind, this team is really fucking young. Like they can use, actual game reps against other teams. So I think that part's valuable for this team. I think guys that haven't seen the field, like Kyler Gordon, not Daz Newsome, Velus Jones Jr., some of the other folks, I think it'll be valuable for them to see the field. Michael Schofield in this scheme and Riley Reif a little bit would be probably helpful if they're healthy. Some of the new guys they just signed, like the replacement for Doug Kramer, who unfortunately seems like has a Liz Frank injury. Hopefully he's okay.
Man, that sucks.
It does. It absolutely does. But I think that'll be really helpful for this team to just get those reps. From a quarterback standpoint, I think Fields did okay in that first game. There was no rhythm per se, but I think he did well on those 2 third downs with the nice throw and catch to Darnell Mooney, and then that ridiculous throw and catch to Tajay Sharp. So I'm excited to see a few things on Thursday. One, it's a road environment, so how does the operation work look, and communication work and look? That's one. The second is, how does Justin Fields play? I think he's going to get like maybe 10 plays in general, but does he start to show a little bit more command and just smoother operation? Because I think that could have been better from the first game. I'd love to see how the wide receivers shake out, because Tajay Sharp made an impression. I think Daz Newsome stepped it up after his first couple gaffes in the first game, and he had a nice touchdown catch and nice run on an end around Equinemius St. Brown. So I'd like to see them develop some of that chemistry. And then on the defensive side, I'd like to see a little bit more impact from Justin Jones from a 3 technique position. That's going to be an important spot for him. And then I'd like to see continued growth on the linebacker front, because we don't know what the answers are there after post Roquan. So that's more or less it. I know I said a lot there, but I like to see just
things to look for, though, right? Yeah. Like we do want, and I think I'm looking to see what Velus does to this offense. I think they keep talking about him being the specialty player, and grabbing him in the 3rd round means they have a very high look on him, and they believe that he can be a big time playmaker in the offense, considering first wide receiver off the board for them, and then in the 3rd round, which many thought was a reach, but then you hear the people called about, polls, we wanted that guy, whether that's just made up or not. I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm also excited for Kyler Gordon, because we keep seeing now reports of him playing in the slot a little bit too, and he told reporters today that he said, he was asked, or it was yesterday, that, hey, Kyler, like, we saw you playing in the slot today. We've seen you playing on the outside. Like, where would you really like to be playing? He goes, like, I think I play good everywhere, something along those lines, or I'm good wherever they put me. That's impressive too. I'm excited to see where he fits into that scheme. It just seems like there's just a new energy with these younger guys that we saw. So I'm curious to see how Fields will play the first 6 to 10 plays. I think he's going to be very aggressive early on, because he's only going to get those 6 to 10 plays. And we heard him say, I only get 20 plays in this game. So I really, I wanted to make a difference. And that's why I made that throw to Mooney, which we'll show you guys here in a second. But I think with only 2 sequences that Fields going to get, or one, if it's a long full on drive, is he going to be really aggressive in that? Or is he going to continue to just, is he going to make the right decisions? Maybe not throw down the field so often right away. That's going to be fun to watch. But this throw from Fields to Mooney was special in a lot of ways. And a lot of people, I thought it was a better catch than throw, but it was also a great throw as well, because it was a way where if it falls incomplete, it falls incomplete, you punt. It wasn't thrown in harm's way.
And I actually said this earlier today. It's not often that a special catch needs to be made on a throw that's considered good. But if you look at that play specifically, that safety is lurking. And if that throw is out in front, kind of like, where Mooney can run underneath it, like a typical perfect pass, he's getting his head blown off. So it was, I don't know if Fields saw that and that's why he threw it that way, but it worked out really well. And it was a really well thrown pass because of that. So, good for Fields. I counted him for 2 really good throws, out of the 6 or 7 or whatever it was that he attempted. Maybe 1 or 2 bad ones that just weren't, like, one of them fell incomplete at Khalil Herbert's feet, just not very well aimed. But otherwise, I thought he played well. I mean, he as much as he could, it didn't look particularly sexy because they didn't really go down and score, and they had other issues. But it was a fine throw.
Let's take a look at that throw.
His length and his athleticism. He's got to show he can anchor on the bull rush too. Big test for him today.
Lofted it up there for Darnell Mooney inside the 45 of Kansas City. The offensive line held up very well, allowing Fields the time to find his top target, Darnell Mooney, for 26.
Terrific protection. He's got press coverage. Nice job. They run the switch route. They know it's man, so Mooney rolls to the outside, and then Justin Fields puts it in a spot where a guy can go up and make the play. Mooney's got the speed to get vertical. Justin Fields, they've worked so hard this.
You saw 22 Thornhill there.
Thornhill, right.
He's getting ready to blow his head off. So it was a good throw there. And I loved the other thing that's low key on this. Did you guys see the route?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right at the line of scrimmage.
Right
there
out of the Green Bay playbook.
Yep,
They
100%.
run that against the Bears all the time.
Devontae Adams scored on that touchdown in Green Bay just before halftime to get the Packers back in the game. Exact same concept. It was a rub route and man coverage. That was awesome. So good to see Luke Getsy bringing that in.
And that bunch formation that they ran at the top of the screen for the touchdown to Daz Newsome.
Great
Yeah.
call.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Well, it's like, wait a minute. I'm watching a Bears game right now, and I'm not watching the Packers. I mean, these are plays right out of their playbook. It was cool to see all of that work. The Packers love that bunch formation play, man. They ran that all the time.
The conflict that they put those defenders in with the out route and the drag route, and there's that one defender that's like, what do I do? And Daz Newsome takes his route just far enough up the seam before going to the post. Oh my God, it was beautiful. So I was very happy about that.
John, with the comment, I'll just say Getsy's play calling looks much better than Nagy's ever did in the pre. Yeah, I mean, it looked systematic. He ran. I was watching the game with my buddy Tyler, who works over at ESPN 1000. He's a producer for Waddle and Sylvie. I was watching the game with him, and he told me that I think it was right out of the chute. He goes, man, they designed that run play so they could throw long to Mooney there. I mean, I just remember him playing short to go long. I remember him saying that, and I'm like, you're right. Like, I've been so trapped in this random, let's just throw whatever at the wall sticks Nagy offense to now this is like systematic and it's working. And we'll see what happens in an actual game, but nonetheless, play calling was great. I agree with you, John. John with another comment. Chris Sims called an underthrow. Chris Sims is a moron. That guy, no way. That was not an underthrow. That was a nice throw from Fields. Could it have been a little bit better? Yeah, sure, if you're nitpicking, but he had the time. The pocket was starting to close.
I don't know. Again, as Drew said, if you really watch the play, if he puts that out in front of Mooney, Thornhill either picks it off or lights Mooney up. If he puts it a little further inside the hash mark, the corner might pick that off too. He put it in the only spot where Mooney had a genuine shot at it. So I think that was a well-placed throw.
Yeah. Let's watch it one more time. I want to take a look.
His length and his athleticism. He's got to show he can anchor on the bull rush too. Big test for him today.
Lofton and up there for Darnell Mooney inside the 45 of Kansas City. The offensive line held up very well, allowing Fields the time to find his top target, Darnell Mooney, for 26.
Terrific protection. He's got press coverage. Nice job. They run the switch route. They know it's man, so Mooney rolls to the outside, and then Justin Fields puts it in a spot where a guy can go up and make a play. Mooney's got the speed to get vertical. Justin Fields, they've worked so hard this.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, if that ball's a little bit inside the hash marks, you might see him cut the route there. But the ball was thrown. It was high enough, too. I think Fields made a few mistakes last season where we saw him kind of throw the ball a little bit lower and not put arc underneath it. I think if the type of ball that he used to – I remember in Green Bay specifically that interception he threw. I don't remember who had the pick, but it was a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
Not the same route, but a similar situation where somebody was trying to cut out towards the sideline and he threw it over there instead of lofting it up. And I think it might have been
Russell Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
Rasul
Douglas jumped the route. And so you're right. If that ball's thrown a little bit lower, he might have jumped it. So a little maturity there. Saw Fields pick up a few blitzes. I know Olin Kreutz pointed that out on Twitter, changing the blocking scheme up front a couple of times. A couple of missed blocks from Treston Ebner. He's got some speed.
Uh-oh.
I
think we lost Cav for a second. Oh, there we go.
The offense looked pretty. Oh, sorry about that. I was talking about looking at Fields changing the blocking scheme a couple of times early on, recognizing different blitz patterns. It wasn't like any crazy blitz patterns. They were very vanilla type, but
lost Kevin again real quick.
Preston Ebner, and then what is it cutting out again?
Yeah, it cuts out periodically.
But I do know what you're saying, Kevin, and actually it's a good point. There was one actually breakdown that Dan Orlovsky did. It was the throw to Tajay Sharp that was awesome on the sideline.
That's the same play Olin was talking about. Yeah,
exactly. It was well. He sees the blitz, pre-snap. He knows he has to slide his protection, and he asks the tight end that was going to go run a route to come in and block. That is stuff pre-snap that he just wasn't able to do last year. That he's doing this year. Yes, it's not necessarily exotic stuff here in the preseason. So, hopefully a quarterback that's in his second year can identify those things, but he did. He's inside his own 20 at that time, I think it was.
10, and inside his own
10. Yeah. And, he's able to make that throw while getting hit. So certainly things that he just wouldn't have done like last year that he did do this year. So trust me, I am for Bears fans that are thinking like, yeah, it was underthrown or whatever it is. Like, trust me, I am not a Fields rah-rah guy. I will be honest, but no, that nothing to complain about on any of those two throws. Those were both really good.
What would you say? What would you give him through 18 plays? Or I don't know how many plays he played. What grade would you give him, Drew?
Give him a B.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think
Yeah,
that's
it'd
fair.
be about the same. Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I think the lack of points kind of takes it away. It can't be an A without putting points on the board. But you're right. No, I thought he played well.
I think he
Well,
only had really one bad play, and that was the one where he ran too soon. You know, that he got a little bit happy because it looked like for a second Jones was going to get beat on the backside, but then he anchored in and controlled the block. But Fields had already felt the pressure, and he started to run. If he had stepped up, he'd have had a clean pocket. And if you had noticed, number 87 was popping wide open on the right side. So that's one of those teaching moments that I'm sure he's going to be on him about.
I just think it's malpractice from the NFL to, we heard a lot about the Soldier Field turf and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. And I honestly think the turf was bad, but I think it was probably better it just looked worse than it was. I think a lot of people were saying that. But the NFL talks about malpractice, and the NFLPA is like, well, we got to talk about that field. No. You have to talk about how you're scheduling a game on Thursday after they played on Saturday. That's way more of a health risk to me than anything else. Why the hell are they playing on Thursday when they played on Saturday? That's malpractice. And I'll be honest, I know they're trying to squeeze preseason games in there, but it's BS. And I'm excited to watch on Thursday. And we saw Eberflus say that starters are going to get about 6 to 10 reps. I don't know if that means offense and defense or just offense, but I'll be honest, I'm not happy about it. I think that's really, really poor planning and just putting guys. We've already seen a handful of injuries. The NFL's a violence sport. We've already seen Zach Wilson get hurt and a couple other key injuries, especially down in Tampa. So why put these guys at risks and play them, not even a week after they just played a game? I don't get it.
Maybe they think they're doing the teams a favor because they actually do play Thursday night games during the regular season. So it's something you can get used to. I don't know. It's probably more money related than anything else and scheduling related. But, I don't think the Bears are happy about it either, just because they'd probably like to get the starters more than just 6 to 10 reps, just to get them a little more experience, but they can't risk the injuries. So it's like, well, we'll just get them a few reps here and get them out of the game. We don't really have a choice. So, it's just one of those things they don't really have a lot of control over, and they just got to do the best they can. It's unfortunate. You wish that they would be on Saturday or Sunday where they could have a proper week of, rest and preparation. But, it's just one of those things you got to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, we want to talk about safety. There were 3 things in that game, or I guess following that game too, that I think the Bears have plenty of reason to complain about. 1, the field. 2, the Thursday night game, and 3, that non-flag on Justin Fields that really should have been a flag. But I mean, this Thursday night, schedule 5 days after whatever they played a preseason game. It's preseason, like. It's just, you know what I mean? It's not worth. I mean, you're already risking injury in preseason games, and I know I'm talking on both sides of my mouth here, where I talked about there is some value in preseason, especially for players that haven't had it, but you're putting them in harm's way by not giving them the chance to go through the usual rest and recovery procedures that they get to go through, the first couple weeks of the season, before they have to go play an actual Thursday night game. So I'm not thrilled about it. I'm glad that Eberflus has a plan to limit the starters' exposure to injury. I'm hoping that, most of that game is played by people that very likely won't make this team, just so you can evaluate them and also give them the opportunity to evaluate themselves and save injury. But it's not great. But I would like to see in that time, we already talked about at least one drive that at least makes you feel comfortable before you put them on the bench, because after that you have one game left and then you have the regular season. So you want to see some like momentum as it relates to the starting offense and starting defense, who both got off to rough starts.
Well, regardless of what we think, say, or preach about, the Bears will play Thursday against Seattle, their second preseason game. Roquan Smith's going to be on that charter flight with the team. We heard that today. It seems as though he wants to be a Bear, despite what he sent to a national reporter, despite the NFL sending out a statement saying there's a fake agent out there trying to negotiate with teams, and if you negotiate with him or his contract, that is tampering. I just wish Roquan Smith would grow up a little bit here, man. I get that. I get that he wants a proper contract. I've never been in that situation, never will be in that situation. I'm sure that there's things in that contract that could be worked out and could be talked about. And I'm sure that maybe there's a few little lines in there we heard about, de-escalators and things like that. We listened to a couple interviews on the radio today of guys who negotiated contracts in the past. Like Andrew Brandt was on the Score today talking about that's usually used for guys who are coming back from injury. You don't use that for star players and things like that. And this guy's negotiated a bunch of contracts before, so hearing it right out of his mouth is cool. But
Boy, that was timing.
looks like I cut out. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi.
Couldn't tell you, man.
All right, we're back.
Even Alan's
I don't know
disappointed
what-
over here.
I don't understand what is up with the contract, and maybe we'll never hear everything that's in there. But if, for instance, if there's something in there that you don't like, that's what you have an agent for. And I don't know, go out and get one. There's plenty of guys lined up that want to be agents. I'm sure you can talk to your teammates, high-profile guys who've had this done already. It just now it's kind of on your shoes to go get this done.
Roquan's in a minority of those players who prefer to control their own destiny in terms of their finances. And I respect that. Laramie Tunsil was like that. Lamar Jackson is like that. So there's an assortment of players who do that nowadays. And, Roquan wants to be one of those guys. I think in college he was sort of studying up on sports business or stuff like that. So maybe he wants to be an agent of some kind when he, gets out of football. I don't know. I just wish Roquan would make sense at this point because so many things about this guy seem so confusing over the years. He's such a fantastic football player, but off the field, weird things happen when he's involved. So, I'm hoping this works out. He gets extended. He comes back, plays great football for the Bears for years to come. I also wouldn't be shocked if they trade him because he wasn't drafted by this regime. They're starting over in a rebuild. If they feel they can get a decent package in return for him and not have to pay that money, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that because they want somebody who wants to be here and is fully committed to the team. And right now, even though he's been at practices and he seems committed to just, staying involved, he's focused on his own finances, which I respect. Don't get me wrong, but it's, there's a breaking point for everybody. And the Bears, they might be reaching theirs at some point soon.
Yeah, I miss the days when his biggest drama point was partying with a Bella Danger.
Oh man, yeah, forgot it. That was like right at the height of the pandemic too.
Yeah.
He was just out on a boat with a bunch of porn stars out on I don't remember where exactly they were.
Georgia somewhere probably,
Yeah.
but when that's your biggest drama point, that's not even a big drama point. Live your life. But this is unfortunately it's gotten to this point. I'm really hoping there isn't a lot of bitter feelings between Poles and Smith once this actually gets ironed out in some way, whether it's with the Bears or elsewhere. But it's a very immature look. Having this Saint Omni guy making calls on his behalf it's a very dangerous game that he's playing. So it's just a very, very weird situation. I'm hoping it gets resolved. I'm hoping he gets his money, some money. I don't think he deserves $22 million, but I hope just resolve it in some way and let's just move on because this is just a weird cloud hanging over the team and they don't need this right now.
It sounds like he wants more money up front, and if that's what it is, you should have an agent be able to get that for you. There should be ways to negotiate that, but you yourself are not an expert in that field, so I don't understand why. But it's not my life, it's not my money, it's not my contract, it's not my business. Even though we're making it our business as fans and trying to get down to it and trying to explain to everybody watching that we're not sure where this leads. The season's coming up. It just has a feeling like these things will work out. They tend to work out between players. They've worked out the other guys who had held-ins, the other star players. So we'll see. It's up in the air at this point, but the second preseason game is on Thursday. They play one more, and then it's time for regular football here on kickoff on September 11th against the 49ers. So guys, anything else before we get on out of here today? Short show. We only wanted to address a few things, not really a whole lot. We'll probably address more about the Seahawks game later on this week. But any other things that we did not address today that we should?
Somebody asked about Demarcus Robinson, the wide receiver that was cut by the Raiders. He has connections to Ryan Poles. Maybe they want to bring him in as somebody. Right? What?
He was a Chiefs guy too.
He was a Chiefs guy, so that's sort of that connection. So just a name to keep an eye on. Maybe they give him a look because of their, whole injury situation at wide receiver. But I expect more receivers are going to be getting cut over the next week or so. So it's going to be an interesting market because I have a feeling the Bears might be pretty active on the waiver wire.
This is the time of year where so many surprising names get cut, and so I'm excited to see who that is. I expect the Bears to be active. They may not end up being starters or depth pieces right away, but probably some folks that can get themselves into shape, maybe, week 2, 3, 4, especially I would look at linebacker. I would look at maybe defensive line, offensive line, and wide receiver as positions, maybe tight end, but I doubt it. And yeah, I mean, I think Poles has made it clear he's never going to stop looking for ways to improve this team. He's already done that in a few different ways this offseason already. So I'm just excited to see what they're able to do, because right now wide receiver is such an interesting question mark.
Well, to continue to tide yourself over before Thursday's game, head to sportsmockery.com. Check out a bunch of Erik's articles. He's got a bunch of different ones up, especially the one on Braxton Jones. That's the one I'm going to go watch. 3 specific plays about Braxton Jones and his blocking. Definitely going to go watch that. Go check out some of those. He'll have a bunch of those, I'm sure, coming out the rest of this week before the game and everything else. But until then, we will talk to you guys after the game on, I don't know about Thursday, but we'll probably chat with you guys potentially Sunday or next week. Get you guys all caught up on everything Bears. Until then, give us a follow, _ClubDub_podcast. You see our Twitter handles in the bottom left-hand corner of our faces right now. Go ahead, give us a follow there as well. We will talk to you guys next week. Peace.